Warlocks and waffles. Warlocks and waffles. Pact once broken, forged. A pact once broken, forged anew. Waffles. Warlocks and waffles. Warlocks and waffles. Warlocks and waffles. Warlocks and waffles. A pact once broken, forged anew. Warlocks and waffles. Forged anew.
Did you want waffles?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back, Junie.
I don't know why that happened.
Junie got up, sat back down, and his whole camera just stopped working. Welcome to Warlocks and Waffles, a show that, according to an ancient wizard, shall be the final sword against Glabraxaron. I don't know what that means, but it is what it is. Welcome to the show, everybody. Happy Monday. Junie, do you have a fun weekend?
Yeah. It was Mother's Day, and I gave my wife the classiest breakfast in bed. It was a tray with a Wawa sizzly croissant, bacon croissant,
Mm-hmm.
and half of the sandwich that I got, because I knew that if I told her what I got, she would also want a bite of that. So I made sure I put that on the plate as well, so I just didn't have to hear it. But then I also bought a pack of several strings of costume pearls, so that way I can say that I gave her a croissant on a bed of pearls. And then I took a tiny pretentious mason jar and spooned mixed fruit in it, and another pretentious mason jar and put Twizzlers in it. And I gave her a LaCroix, a pamplemousse LaCroix.
Junie, I do need to clarify what makes a mason jar pretentious.
If you don't need to be drinking out of a mason jar, or you're not like on a farm or impoverished, or you have regular cups or anything.
So if it's a cup that is a mason jar, not like just a mason jar that you have poured something into.
Yeah, like I didn't need to put Twizzlers in a mason jar. I did that. That was a choice. Look, if it's a choice, you know what you did.
Right.
You know what you did if it's a choice like that. And I feel like I did something else. Oh,
if you looked at it and went, you know what would really tie this aesthetic together?
It was funny,
jar.
Yeah. Oh, and then I bought like a random small tiny plant, like a potted plant that was fake, and also put it on there. Nice. And sang "Happy Mom Day" to you as I came into the room and woke her ass up. And
nice.
And then the card that we gave her from my daughter, we put 2 $1 bills and an Uno card. And then we played Nintendo Switch Sports later on in the day, and I hurt my arm because she decided she wanted to like not lose in tennis, and apparently I'm a god in tennis. But I've given myself a real feeling injury for the fakest, least amount of energy ever put into tennis,
Yeah.
which hurts my everything.
Yeah.
And then I played a computer on hard level and was humbled very quickly.
Yeah, you're a god on tennis against the very specific opponents you were playing against.
I thought I was halfway decent until I played Mike and Pierre, the NPCs, on hard mode, and like I said, humbled.
Yeah.
It was laughable.
Have you ever played the Rayman's Raving Rabbids games on the Wii?
I think so, yeah.
My wife and I went to visit my brother like months ago. And he set that up and we like started playing. When I left, my arms hurt so much because so many of those games are just like swing them
Pumping,
as fast as you can. And yeah, I was in so much pain.
For tennis, it's not just the full arm movement, it's a lot of just wrist movement. And
it's just
then
wrist and forearm.
Yes, but also if you twist while you do it, you can put backspin or whatever. So my pretentious ass is also putting backspin and flicking. So and then once we got past the novelty of like let's stand and do it, it's just
yeah.
This hurts, you know, and I'm like
Junie.
Yeah.
On Friday, we had.
What did I tell you? I don't know. What did
we had our show. And when we wrapped up the show, every episode we give 3 like calls to action.
That was scary.
And one of our calls to action on Friday was like, hey, like recharge your batteries, do something to like re-energize yourself, make yourself feel better, like stuff like that. And then I added to that, like just jokingly, and also like recharge your battery packs. Like if you have external batteries and stuff like that, make sure those are charged. You never know what's gonna happen.
Today was that we need to check the news before we do the show.
I received a text from Judy Friday night that said the power is out in my entire complex. Apparently on the news this morning there were reports that there could potentially be solar flare activities that could knock out power and Wi-Fi and all that stuff. So people should charge their devices and make sure they're good on candles and whatnot.
Yeah. We're just prophetic with it. Like
we as a joke, we're like, charge your things. And then Junie luckily listened to our show.
I did have full battery packs.
I should charge my battery packs.
I had a full battery pack, and so the Janice, like, we could charge our phones were like cartoonishly like on 5%. Like it's just like, oh, we hadn't charged our phones that night yet, you know, but it was here it was 10 or whatever time it was, and it's just like, oh, everything is dark. My kid is like, why'd you turn off Lucas the spider? Turn it back on. I'm nervous. And it's like, 2-year-old, why are you saying like I'm unsettled? Like, who the hell are you?
Father, there is a deep creeping dread that has spread through me like a virus.
Father, I'm unsettled. It's like, whoa.
I find this sudden and inevitable darkness disconcerting, Father. Anyway, in light of our clear prophetic talents, I wanted, and I didn't tell Junie what we were talking about today.
I have no idea.
So I didn't want to give him time to prep. I wanted to talk about prophecy in your games. Specifically, if you've ever used like prophecy in a game where where the players are like involved in that prophecy, or like they're working against a prophecy, or like the prophecy is like this person will rise to power and they shall whatever. Like, are the players working against that prophecy? Are they working to fulfill it? Do they find it later? Um, and just like talk about prophecies in games. Junie, have you ever used a like prophecies in your games?
One time accidentally, and many times with the full knowledge that everybody would forget about it, so I didn't care. The one time I did it accidentally was at one of I would run games for like groups of teens at libraries, and it was the kid had like, some people come in like, I don't know what I'm doing, just give me a character sheet and they'll just
Mhm.
play, and sometimes they'll have like an actual character and actually whatever. And the kid's backstory was like he was on a journey because he had a prophetic dream where he saw children in arms and flames. He saw kids armed with weapons and flames, and that's all he saw and
Uh,
knew, and just knew
the
he had to venture in
child
the world to
riot dream.
correct. And we were like, whoa, that's crazy. And then I was like, what the hell? The way I angled the thing, she just comes right the children their arm.
the the viewers can't see what we just watched,
Oh, they can't see
because
that. Oh, that's so
your video
funny.
is cropped in. Junie's video is
I'm way
he
more
doesn't have
panned
his
out than
camera
normally.
zoomed in all the way on his green screen. Usually his video is zoomed in all the way. He's zoomed all the way out, so I can see like the room on either side of his green screen. And the way his camera is angled and the green screen is set up, the one side of it is angled directly at the door into the room. And so I just watched the door into the room open and his daughter's just standing there staring at him.
Also, I was like, hey, go over there. And she's like, well, I'm really bored. And I'm like, you're two. What is the world? Are you serious? Like, but
Go
it's
imagine things.
go imagine something. What's so funny is that I
Kids
was like,
these
children.
days.
I was like, children in arms, and
You
children's
did
arms, and then the door
the
like
children
kicks
are
open.
rioting. The door opens and there's just a child. Um oh man, that was really
That's
funny.
so funny.
Fully threw me off.
Oh god, no, it's so funny that nobody could see that. So
Yeah.
it was expert. But anyway, and that happened, and months passed, nothing happened of it.
Mhm.
But one of the kids has like adopted kids. They've
Okay.
somehow
Mhm.
picked up like companion kids or whatever, right? So what happened was that one player with the kids was like gonna bow out. Like they wanted to pick a new character, so we were trying to like bow that character out. And so I said like Mert was like, you need to come home, you need to come back. Um, and we saw her kids. I think they had swords, and I think there was like just flames,
Mhm.
right? And and I just described this right because I had a funny punchline in the back of my head that once we got there or she got there, it was going to be that the kids were rehearsing for some sort of stage play, like a community theater stage play.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was like pyrotechnic flames, and there was like prop weaponry. And it was like they were actually like, come home so you could see your kids in a play.
Right.
And it was like, oh, they're not in danger, because the whole thing she was like
Mhm.
rushing back to get to her
Mhm.
kids. But right before that part, there was a moment where the one kid is like, "Oh my god, this is it." Because he had the sneaking suspicion this pyromaniac like player kept adopting kids, and it was just like, I saw kids. I saw kids armed. She keeps arming her kids, and
Mhm.
she keeps on fire. It got to the point where he was like, "Dude, am I here to stop her?" He was
Right.
like
Yeah.
accidentally fulfilling his own prophecy.
Yeah.
And in the moment where it seems like he's like, "Oh no, the prophecy is nigh," I'm like, "It's actually a community theater production." But like, I didn't know I was doing. I
Right.
forgot about the prophecy.
Right.
Any other time I've used something that's kind of like a prophecy, it was literally like I thought this would sound cool, and
Mhm.
if they remember it, then we'll come back to it.
Right.
Otherwise, this is just cool for the moment.
Mhm.
So I have more than once, if I did something and I needed to like either explain it away DM shenanigans wise, this is a thing anybody can do. If you goof and you need to DM shenanigans away something you said, right? Or you just want to really throw a curveball and set this up, have whatever deity, god, demon, whatever it is, go, "Oh, you didn't do that yet. My mistake." And then just leave. And they're like, "What?" And then it's kind of like, "Wait a second. Was that person that encounter whatever this was, were they angry at us for something we haven't done yet? What thing did we not what thing are we going to do to incur that?"
Mhm.
And then if they remember it, or if you like, so you like in the future, you're like, I do want to set this person up. Maybe they're not ready for it or something. You're like, if you set up an encounter, it's too hard or whatever. You know what I mean? You do something and then just go give it back, and then have everybody roll. It's like, no, you don't know what he's talking about, and you convince them. It's like we don't know anything. It's like, wait, you didn't take the tablet of Ramas Nadu, and it's just like, no, it's like flames go off. Oh, I'm sorry.
Time
You
is
haven't
so
done that yet.
confusing when it's in a straight line.
Yeah. My apologies.
Yeah.
You all can go back to sleep, and then make him wake up from a dream, right?
Mhm.
Then you're like, boom, and it's like, what just happened? Was that real? I don't know. See you next session. And then you flip the table and run away.
Throw yourself through a window.
I have done the you haven't done that yet thing
Mhm.
more than once. And it's hilarious every time. Because then they're like freaking out, but then they have like the attention spans of Goldfish, or it's like a different group, so it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, yo, we were punished. It's like this is gonna happen. They're gonna like, continue the story to like where it could lead to. So it's kind of like a
Mhm.
fun little thought thing for them. Um, but like I haven't gotten far enough in a campaign. I never had a long enough campaign where it'll like do that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I like that. Um, in my experience, there's different types of prophecies. There's like the like random nonsense prophecy of just like somebody saying a bunch of things and they like don't necessarily like actually have any prophetic ability. So they're just like saying things, but then those things don't ever happen. There's the ones that are kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like the players or whoever receives this prophecy, and then like in their attempts to prevent that prophecy from happening, they like cause it to happen. And then there's the prophecies that are like mm, uh going to happen, like unavoidable type thing, like you can't prevent them from occurring. um that like as the players try and prevent it, it just ends up like changing how things are going to happen.
I want those to work, but
Mhm.
I could never. It's that fine line of I want to keep them on rails enough to achieve
Mhm.
XYZ. And I think this is something about me, and I don't know what it is about me,
Mhm.
but people love, I guess they're like, oh, Drew could take it. They love messing with me just enough where if I give off the impression or vibe that I want something in a game,
Yeah.
that's when people go like, well, I'm obviously not going to do that.
Right.
Junie's not on rails. But if I give that impression, they're just like, I'm definitely not going to go down that gentle slope towards that.
Right.
So it's like almost I have to trick everybody into everything. And I know that says something about like, it's my style. I just need to like adapt a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like I can never get them to work myself. Like any
Mhm.
sort of combination of the ones you laid out, because it's just like if I lay it on too thick, they rebel. That's just how it always it's how it goes.
Yeah. There's a lot of different like a lot of different ways that players can react to prophecies. In my games, I find that like players usually are going to react either like they immediately discount it, don't think about it, like it never comes up again, or they're like taking a bunch of notes and like, oh man, what is this? I love a prophecy in a game, especially if it is one that's like, this is a like kind of vague prophecy. Like I've watched media and like movies and shows and stuff like that where there will be a prophecy that is like very specific, where it's like, according to this prophecy, on this day in this year when these things happen, and like yada yada yada. And it's like, I mean, that's very specific. That doesn't give you a whole lot of like wiggle room or interpretation or anything like that. Anytime I give a prophecy, I like using a lot of like uh
Symbolism and
metaphors and
yeah.
symbolism and stuff like that, of like, if I make them vague enough that I could always repurpose it for something else,
Mm-hmm.
then if the like uh for an example, I have a one of the like big like and antagonists in my like game world is a figure called the Shattered King, who is a this powerful entity who was like locked away in this like demi realm, and had like been sealed away, has been looking for to be freed. There are prophecies that a lot of people like attribute to him as being like, he will be released from his prison, he will raise an army, he'll do all these other things. um in that same world is also the one where the lich is locked away, and so it's like if you know both of those things are there, a lot of those prophecies could be for either one. And it's not like in the third summer of the second month, like
Mm,
it's not like that. It's just the like, when this happens, this
mm,
A, B, and C, or like these are the signs to look for, that like lead to this thing happening. And so when it's not a like, this will happen at this time, and it's just kind of like a vague understanding, um the majority of the time it results in like, those are pretty easy to deliver on uh prophecies. It also means that there are going to be players who are like, if you have a player who is really invested in that prophecy and they want to go, okay, I feel like I figured this out. I've looked over all of like, this. It's almost always the note taker of the group.
yeah.
Will be like, I've looked through all of my notes from the past like 2 years of campaign. Like, I think I've figured this out. If they've really poured
I
themselves
consulted the
into the
stars.
prophecy,
Yeah.
like it gives them the ability to kind of piece things together and try and figure stuff out. Um, but like, if they figure it out and then they're like, okay, well, let's try and stop this. If it feels like something the whole party is into and is like wanting to work towards, then they could potentially disrupt it and make sure that like that prophecy isn't going to come to fruition, at least now, because like we've disrupted this thing, like that thing isn't going to happen. um but if it's kind of a like a hollow victory at that point, you could always have the prophecy have been about something else, and like there was a misinterpretation, and like yada yada yada. There's I find prophecy to be a very fun thing to play with, because it is so open to interpretation. If you are like trying to make uh your games kind of like play around with that stuff. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. If you were trying to like set up a game that was going to use a prophecy in it, Junie, what are some things to you that make a good prophecy? Like what are some like touch points that you're like, well, if I was gonna make a prophecy, I would want it to have these things.
There are things where they're like player specific and like party specific.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer the party specific situation where it's like they all have like an opportunity to unravel or contribute to it happening, figuring it out, whatever the situation is. It If you do it where it's like it's one of them is a trigger or one of them is like almost like a main facet of it, you
Mm-hmm.
run into that like almost well, they're the protagonist and we're in their story situation.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that is either like you are planning to use a prophecy or like shoehorn, I think prophecies can like almost also be like fun if you have like a random table of side quests,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, maybe make it a riddle and like, reverse engineer it, you know what I mean? So
Sure.
you can like, it doesn't have to be like the whole point. If you want to make it like, oh, this is a thing that could happen in it,
Started
that,
a destination and kind of work
yeah.
backwards.
But don't fall into the trap of like one person discovers it and it's like, well, now it's their thing. Because if it's something where it's like this one person met like the fortune teller and then they were, even if it's like, oh, they were all there type of thing, it could still be like it was meant for them. They have to be the one to solve it. I didn't see it, why should I care type of situation. So whether it's like a big one, like it's the whole overarching thing, or if it's a little side quest one, make everybody involved in some way, shape, or form. Like
Mm-hmm.
let everybody's hands be on it, so that way everybody can like roll something. So that way everybody can contribute. So everybody feels a little invested. Because everybody's gonna have their own individual motivations for things, whether it's money, power, but if they were involved in some way, shape, or form, alone could be their little bit
Mm-hmm.
of like, I don't like not knowing, I need to know what's up with my character.
Yeah.
Or they can make their own like, oh, this could stop me from achieving my individual thing. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like this uncertainty of it. I have to unravel this to make sure I continue to achieve my goal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you have to be careful. You could do something where you chop up a prophecy and make it so like they all find pieces of it and put it together and then they form a bigger
I do
picture.
love a patchwork puzzle of
You know what I
prophecy.
mean?
Yeah.
But like I am guilty of intending to like spread the wealth as far as like focusing on players,
Mm-hmm.
and not everybody has the same level of like not investment, but when they like let loose and get lost in the sauce.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have some people that either speak in character or dive in as themselves, and some people that are very analytical and concise and they're just gonna say their piece and then be
Mm-hmm.
done with it. And if you don't do your part to kind of let some moments rest on them, then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes, I'm going to go up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to buy this. Great. What are you going to do? And then it becomes like a half hour of that person ordering a
Yeah, yeah,
sandwich.
yeah, yeah. Like
This person did this big impactful thing, and this other person's just ordering a sandwich or spending way more time on that.
yeah. I want to go like I want to make sure all of my equipment is like cleaned up and then I'll go to bed. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like end. And what do you
Yeah.
want to do? I want to go track down that NPC that we talked to earlier and
Yeah.
like interrogate him about A, B, and C. And it's like, okay, cool. 45 minutes later,
Yeah.
you've like wrapped the scene with that
And
person. Yeah.
and depending on the
It's a very
GM,
easy trap to fall into.
it's a very easy trap because you want to indulge it, you want to go, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to make sure everybody still can like put in their 2 cents, or like I try to do like almost like a like I'm bouncing between them type of thing.
Mhm.
But it still gets unfair. It still gets to the point where like, well, these people are just gonna look at their phones because they know this has nothing to do with them.
Mhm.
So try to make sure it's not so much on railroads. I never do this. I do it like for one shots, but I never do this one thing where I feel you should session 0 before everything just kind of go, you all are united by blank
Mhm.
money. You are united by not wanting to fail this bishop. This
Mhm.
one thing, because everybody's got their own motivations. And if you don't set like, hey,
A
because we're
group
kind of all
motivator.
yeah, because we're all
Yeah.
playing pretend and we're
Mhm.
all like, we all want to make sure that we're moving forward and not
Right.
like trying to herd cats. Let's just to remember that flavor it however you want to flavor it, but we do
Mhm.
all want XYZ
It's
because
really important that the group has something that, like, everybody in that group is all working towards that same thing.
exactly, because it'll get to the point where we're like, going whatever, and then one person's like, "Well, I actually don't care about money. I'm just here to avenge my brother." And it's like, "Well, hey, you wouldn't have gone on this. You wouldn't have joined this group, and you wouldn't have
Well,
gone on this mission if you didn't."
actually, I'm independently wealthy,
Yeah,
and, like, I don't need this. It's like, "Okay, well,
you wouldn't have
why are you
joined
here?"
these people, and you wouldn't all that stuff. So like,
Yeah.
how about you're trying to avenge your brother, and you know that these people will be the ones to do it. So you want
Mhm.
their success so you can succeed.
Mhm.
Like however we have to spin it, so that way you
Help
buy
me
in.
find a motivation for
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah.
I've used the you talked about the like the trick you use of like, oh, you haven't done that yet. Uh
Hmm.
when it comes to like prophecies and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of prophecies in media are portrayed as kind of like almost a song. It's like this kind of
There's parts to it.
musical sort of
Oh,
like almost poetry of like it
okay,
flows together. Like
okay.
you'll never hear a prophecy that's like um uh
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
summer of 82, there's gonna be a guy, he's gonna come and do
Okay.
stuff, and it's gonna be bad. Like, it's always like, when the sun hath risen on the 84th
Yes.
day, look towards the heavens and see what they say. Like, it's always that sort of thing.
Yeah.
A trick I've used many times is have you ever like you speak multiple languages. You know
Several.
how sometimes something doesn't quite translate well from one language to another
Yes.
language.
Hmm.
I will do that a lot, where I'll be like, this prophecy was originally in abyssal, primordial, draconic,
Hmm.
something like that, and it doesn't quite translate right to common. And so like you can tell that it was some sort of like sonnet or poem or something like
Hmm.
that by the way it's laid out. But it doesn't quite have that same impact in common. And what I'll usually do is I will write out my prophecies in kind of a like a poetry
Okay.
pattern, or like kind of like a song or something like that, and then I'll take them to Google Translate and run them through like 5 different
Oh, that's
levels of
so
Google
good.
Translate and then back
That's
to
so
English.
good.
And at that point, it's like, okay, well, these words don't quite match up. Like, they don't quite make as much sense. Like, they're obscured a little bit. Like, every once in a while, there's a word that just doesn't work anymore. And
That's so funny. That's really good. I
I've
really like
had
that.
games where it was like, this is a celestial prophecy that has been that was stolen from the hall of prophecy in the heavens by these devils, translated into infernal. And then
That's so
it was given to like these these priests on the prime material so they can work against this like mission of the heavens. So it's been translated into common, and it's like then you have the players looking over it and they're like, what is this city? Like there's a city name, like it seems like this is a city name. Like what is that? That doesn't, as far as I know, that doesn't exist. Like, does anybody know of this thing? It's just like something has been horribly mistranslated. And if
There's
you
one thing I
start
would.
with that like original thing as
Mhm.
well, and you have that original thing, then you can like, as the players get like earlier translations of it, or they find like notes or anything like that, then you can have them like check to see if they can like retranslate sections of it to give them more information, which is a lot. I really enjoy that.
I
um
have one little like, and you know from experience, so tell me if I'm overthinking or if I'm like, no, actually, blank.
yeah.
I feel this is one of those moments that if that's what you're gonna do,
Hmm.
tell them that part. Like what I would think, my because I'm about like how something can go wrong type of situation.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tell them, hey, like after the initial setup and they've like dipped their toe, just so you get that there's a translation thing here. This can be solved, but
Hmm.
just so you know, this is how I did this.
Yeah.
So that way, that on the back end, the player part, they go,
Right,
if
right,
they
right.
work somewhere and they get frustrated, they're like, he's just messing with us. And there's
Hmm.
not. They know. And we, there's parts where sometimes we reveal too many of the secrets behind the DM
Yeah.
screen, and sometimes we hold too many things. In my opinion, that's one of those things like, hey, just so you know XYZ. So
Hmm.
that way when you feel you get to a logical point and it's not it, I'm not pulling the rug out of you. The rabbit hole goes deep,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
know
yeah.
that it can XY like this, because I know I can just imagine the scenario of somebody's like, I translated it, I did this, I did this, I did this. And it's like, well, actually it's just like, you're just gonna keep doing it. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, no, I did it a bunch of times. Uh because it's like they don't know everything
Yeah,
behind,
yeah,
and we don't need to tell them everything, but it's one of those, you're going to make your life easier
yeah.
if
Hmm.
they like, I know, by telling people certain things like, hey, just so you know, this is plausible, blah blah blah
Hmm.
blah blah, but this, then if they fail, they don't get mad at you.
Yeah. Well, and
It's
one
just
way
that
to
understanding.
easily like kind, if you're gonna do the thing that I described,
Yeah.
one thing that can help with that is like putting uh like the best way for them to find it is probably written down.
Hmm.
And then if you have like just there's notes in the margins, like it's in a notebook or something like that,
Hmm.
and like there's just notes in the margins about like the source that it was translated from or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I've had players who speak like infernal,
Hmm.
who have found a like a prophecy that was translated from infernal into common, and it's like they don't have the infernal copy, but there are things that are wrong in the like in the actual
Hmm.
translation. And so I've given players like, if oh you speak infernal, go ahead and make just like a intelligence check or an investigation check or something like that.
Hmm.
And they look over it, and I'm like, from looking over this, like you speak infernal, you know that infernal is kind of a difficult language to translate into common. There's a
Hmm.
lot of like words that don't necessarily translate correctly. From looking this over, you see some areas that to you raise some red flags as this might have been mistranslated. That there are sections of this that might not be accurate, and you don't have the infernal copy, so you don't know like
Hmm.
what the original was, which gives them like, okay, this thing is translated from something else, which means like we could in theory find that other thing that it was translated from if we can figure out where they translated this from.
Yeah.
It also immediately gives them just sort of a like a focus for that energy. I'm a big fan of like National Treasure
Hmm.
with Nick Cage. I love that movie. And so any opportunity to give my players a sort of like Yeah, you need to like this relies on you having like knowledge about the world and like having paid attention and taken notes and like doing A, B, and C. Like this is a puzzle you need to solve, especially if it isn't a immediate time crunch. Like if this is
Hmm.
a like you have time to solve it, and so you're going to go about your other stuff, and this can play kind of a background like side quest type thing. Like that's a lot of fun for me. If it's an immediate time crunch where it's like if this thing doesn't happen before the eclipse, like these bad things will happen. um those you want to be much more clear on, because if it is a like immediate time crunch, you need your players to know what that time crunch
Hmm.
is and what they are supposed to be doing in that time crunch. If they don't,
Correct.
then you've just given them kind of a vague direction with no concept of what they're supposed to be doing, and a time crunch which then immediately applies pressure that is going to make this less fun. I have played in one game where it was like here is a prophecy, and like you're working to try and prevent this prophecy from happening, but like none of us knew anything about it, none of us like understood the prophecy, and so like the first couple of sessions were us just desperately
Figuring it
trying
out.
to like solve this puzzle, knowing that like we were rapidly running out of time. And that GM also like the amount of time it would take to get from like city to city was very large. It was like multiple weeks to get from like one
Mm,
big city to another big city. Um, but we had like 2 months to like
mm,
stop this thing. And so we were like, we don't have if we aren't 100% sure that that is where we need to go, we can't go there. We don't have the time to spend going there, on the chance that it might be
correct. Yeah.
helpful. Which then immediately shuts down your player agency to like try things and kind of puzzle things through. I
Yeah.
personally, unless it is a very direct um like a very direct prophecy of like this will happen at this time unless this thing's done, here are the steps you can take to do it. And like you can put a little like one level of obfuscation. That was a
Ooh,
four
word
letter
of the
word.
day.
The if you put that one level and have it be like a little cloaked, a little shadowed, um and the players have to work through a little bit of it, that's one thing.
Hmm.
But if the players are having to like really work to decipher every little bit of this and like there's not a direct path or anything like that, then you have an issue where like you're now relying on your players problem solving skills, or otherwise bad things will happen, and that immediately leads to player frustration in my experience.
Yeah. No, that I see that, and there needs to be a direct correlation between the how much weight you want to give this, how much
Mhm.
it is tied to it, and how heavy-handed you need to be. If
Mhm.
this is a critical without doing this or solving this or being aware of this, it cannot move forward.
Mhm.
It unfortunately becomes, and unfortunately in the sense of it's not a mystery anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's no solving it. It's more of you are telling them it, and they're like, it's more of imagine a video game where it's almost like you just have like a button reaction type of
Mhm.
situation where it's like hit X to do like a little something.
Mhm.
That's what their interaction's gonna be in that type of prophecy,
Sure.
because it's like this is happening no matter what.
Yeah.
And a prophecy by very like it's gonna there's an inevitability on it. It also gives you a little bit of excuse to railroad a smidge,
Mhm.
because the whole point is you do that. So if you do frame it as in there's a prophecy and they either want to, they have to, they have no choice, you can like at least blame it all on that. So
Yeah.
I know I've done like they went this way, but they ended up over here, and it's like, what is it? Magic? Oh, the thing wants this to happen. Like you can
Mhm.
kind of get away with taking away a little bit of that. But if it's like you said, real decreased priority, they can chew on it, whatever.
Mhm.
That's when you let them find notes. That's when you let
Right.
them puzzle out things in between sessions and in the
Mhm.
front end of the next session. Like, okay, so before we start, I kind of blank at the campfire. Hey, is this blank? Like, and do
Mhm.
they want to pursue that and take away from whatever? But like it should be like a sliding scale of how much do I need to shovel and just make happen and tell them what's happening and tell them what they're doing versus I'm just putting it out there on my hand and seeing if the bird comes and picks
Right.
at the seeds type of thing.
Well, and
You
that
can't
kind of goes for like any like plot point
correct.
stuff that you
Yeah,
put in front of your players, right? Like you need
yeah,
if you need them to know what it is, they need to like have the tools in order to decipher it.
correct.
One of my groups, they're in like this kind of like political intrigue type game. They're like
Dope.
they're agents of opportunity, which are like adventurers, but like uh adventurers in the same way that um
A chef is a ninja. No.
no. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Privateer. Like a privateer is to a
Mhm,
pirate what agents of
mhm.
opportunity are to adventurers. They're
Gotcha,
like,
yeah.
you're gonna do these things, but you like work for the crown. And so they
Mhm.
are like officially sanctioned adventurers of the empire, essentially.
Official pirates, yeah.
But uh they were told that they were going to have a quest. They were going to go get like the like, okay, I'll tell you, like I'll give you more information on your next mission in a couple of days. They woke up on the morning of that day and there was like a chest in their room with like a scroll of teleportation and like some other like little miscellaneous bits and bobs and a letter that just said like go to this place, await further instructions. And one of the players was like, can I make like a investigation or an insight check or something like that to see if like there's anything suspicious about this box? And I had them roll and they rolled pretty well and they like looked it over and didn't find anything that looked out of the ordinary. Like it had the correct seals on it, like everything was uh seemed in place. But like that was a couple of months ago, and last session they were like going back through because everything has gotten really weird on their end. They're going back through stuff and realize that like that letter is not in the like hand of the person who normally gave them their missions,
Mhm,
and they were told that like they were going to talk with that person who would give them more details about the mission, whereas this was just go to this place.
mhm.
And so like they are beginning to piece those pieces together now, but like even though they rolled really well on their investigation check like way back when, they didn't have the pieces to be able to put those pieces together.
Yeah, it wasn't you
um
messing with them, it was just
Right. They would
unfortunate,
have no
yeah.
way to know that it wasn't that there was
Mhm.
something out of the ordinary. But once they had those pieces and they like had the ability to do it, even I assumed that they probably wouldn't go back to like looking at that note again.
Mhm,
And so like I gave them that piece because they had like rolled it previously. They have all the
mhm.
information now. So like in our last session, they're on watch, and I had them roll just like a quick check. And while that one person was on watch, they like were reorganizing something in their bag, went to pack stuff away, and saw that note like sticking in their bag, and kind of like pulled it over to look it over again, and started putting these pieces together. And
Mhm.
I gave them that because they had like done those rolls earlier. If they don't have all of the pieces yet, they can still roll and you don't have to give them information that they don't have access to. But you can have them roll to like get some what information they are able to
But
ascertain,
the
and
the
then later
best, like,
on
a
you
natural
can
20
give
is
them
the best that
stuff.
they could a natural 20 is the best they could, like, possibly get with,
Right.
like, the situation and what they can do. It doesn't mean, like, a guaranteed, you know,
Yeah,
everything is automatically,
exactly.
done.
And that's what I told them in the last session was like, you rolled really well. From what you saw, from what you knew, there wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Nothing raised a red flag. With what you know now, it puts some of these things into a different light. You're looking at it through a different lens. Actually, going back to like National Treasure, there's the whole thing where like they're looking at the Declaration of Independence, and like there's the stuff on like the hidden message on the back, right? They wouldn't have found that if they didn't have the like heat and lemon juice. Even if they roll really well, they're not going to be able to see it. And then even once they have that, there's other stuff hidden on there if you don't have like those glasses. And if you don't have the glasses and you're using like the different lenses, and like they all go in different places. So like even if you are,
you really know this movie, like
I
I'm
love
like,
this movie
oh
so
yeah,
much, dude.
yeah.
It's so good. If you don't have all of the pieces, if you don't have a vital lens to look at the information through, you're not going to be able to get all the information from it. Which I think is also a very important piece of like prophecy. If you are looking at the prophecies and like don't have the knowledge, you don't have the information to be able to pull from, then there's no way for you to decipher that. If somebody rolls really, really well on a history check for like knowledge that they wouldn't have access to, like this is hidden, forbidden knowledge that like there's no way their character would know this thing. A nat 20 on a history check that's like a really good roll, maybe you just give them a like, you don't know what this is, but you think you'd know somebody who would. Like there's like you know of this like professor who studies this sort of stuff. Like your if your players are trying to figure stuff out, there are more ways to give them answers than just here is the information.
The only I guess thing around what you just said is magic.
Yeah, like powerful divination magic and stuff.
Or like there is a lot of DMs, you know, GMs have faced the power player, the meta player, and it's not always them, but like the one person that does the specific combination of spells, rolls, and like if they explain it just right, where it's almost like we've all done the thing where it's like, well, you explained such a thing in such a way, I can't make you roll because then it invalidates the effort that they put into it, type of thing. Where it's just like roll to just make sure it's I'm not going to say you can't. I just want to make sure it's like there's no negative to this. You know what I mean? You did it. You described everything so well. Yeah, you get it. Let's just make sure you don't make a noise. You know what I mean? Like I can't give it to you 100% with no risk.
Right.
And if somebody does the right combination of like, hey, I have this, it does this. Can I piggyback off of it? And it's like, all right, if you didn't describe that very specific Jenga move, I will tell, like, I like telling the player this because it doesn't have to be like a competition, like you're trying to outsmart me, but they should know when it's like, you know, I'm going to give you, there is literally, unless you said, put a comma in that with the way you said it, there's no way this would ever happen.
Yeah.
That being said, you know that it's over there. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm not going to fault you for being dope as a player and as a character. And that's the only time you give it to them. But that's what makes those moments feel great.
Yeah.
So you have to play it like, hey, this is what you have. This is the best you can do. And then there's going to be that every once in a while where it's like, okay, you got me. You used that thing I forgot you had.
Yeah.
And these other things. Okay, you know what? Yeah. I don't need to use this whole session anymore because you did just work all the way around it. But like, you know, I make them aware. I don't know. And you tell me if that's actually a bad look or not.
No,
because it's one of those things where I want to let them know you did a very wild thing.
Yes.
Like, so it's like, I don't want to ruin it and take it away, but it's kind of like, it makes that moment feel cool for them. It lets other
Yes.
people know they could have those kind of moments
Yes.
where it's like, you know what I mean? It does, like I said, it doesn't have to be like it's me versus you,
Yeah.
but it's kind of cool when you're like, I got you, you know, in a
If
friendly, like,
you
not screw you, but in like, haha.
if your players do something like stupid and awful and like they're doing something that is like they've ruined your plans because they did something like dumb and like
Hmm.
went off and did a bunch of stupid shit, like then absolutely don't let them know like, oh yeah, you've like half of my adventure is now gone. Don't give them the satisfaction of that for like that. If they do
Hmm.
something clever, if they like outsmart you,
Correct.
absolutely let them know like, yeah, you found something I did not account for. Well done. Like you
Yeah.
looked at all of the information I gave you and you solved the puzzle.
Hmm.
The if you are a GM, part of being a GM is always being willing to be beaten. The moment a GM is like, no, I want this to
Hmm.
go the way that I want it to go, and I am unwilling to like waver on that,
Yeah.
you've chosen your own fun over your players.
Correct.
Um, and it's not a good situation for a GM to be in. Um,
Hmm.
as the GM, you are responsible for telling the story that the players are involved in and telling the story that the players are going to enjoy. And so often there are GMs that are like, oh, I'm playing this game because I want to play this game, and
They
like
want to tell a story.
my
Yeah.
players
Yeah.
aren't enjoying it, like or I'm like beating my players down over and over again, or I'm doing any number of things. um if you are unwilling to have been bested,
Hmm.
then you're not giving the players the best experience you could, and you're not running the best game that you could. Like, in order to be the best GM you can be, you need to always be willing to lose. Because the flip side of that is you are not on the side of the bad guys.
Hmm.
You are an ally of the players. Like, it is your job to make sure that the
Yeah.
game is challenging and provide like a like a foe and a like a story that they are working through. But like, you want your players to succeed. You want them to like win. Um
Hmm.
if your players do something and you go, oh well, I didn't account for that, I don't like that they did that, I'm going to punish them for like finding a creative way around. Why? Like, isn't that what
Yep.
you want your players to like be so invested in your game that they are like learning it and making creative choices to like play within that space with you. Which
It's
all
it.
like also goes with prophecy.
I think the thing that had gotten me like I think just changed, not changed, but like reinforced the way I like kind of approach things is
Mhm.
I kind of stopped going like role playing game, D&D, like, you know, wording it like that, and like collaborative storytelling.
Yeah,
Like, it is, you guys are
it is a story.
working together
Mhm.
to tell a cool story. It is not like you know, supposed to be they're helping you tell your story.
Right.
They're not you know, they're not, you're not there to tell a specific person's story. If you want to be
Mhm.
like, I'm here to tell your guys' story, I word it like that sometimes because I know I can take myself out of it enough.
Mhm.
But like, not everybody can, like, you know, disassociate that hard. So it's like, no, I'm in this too. You're in this too.
Right.
We're all working together to do this. And, you know, like mastering, not even mastering, because, you know, really getting a hold of like yes anding, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just
Mhm.
like, okay, you want to flavor things like this, you know, like what about we do it like this? You know,
Yeah.
what is it? It's not yes and it's no, not no but, or is it like Is it what's comma but? Is it like
Yeah, no but
no,
works.
no,
Yeah,
no?
like yes
Okay,
and
yeah,
no but. It's either like you do that thing, yes, like great.
yeah,
This is what happens, or like you do this thing, no, like you can't do that thing, but like here are some other options. Here are how
yeah.
we can make what you're trying to do work.
Mm-hmm.
The job of a GM is to make sure that the players are having a good time,
Mm-hmm.
and that the story that they are looking to tell is being told.
Mm-hmm.
There are too many times where the game is just like the GM is telling their story and the players are just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Like the moment, one of the reasons that I don't necessarily enjoy modules is that I feel like for me as a player, I don't enjoy modules because I feel like there's only one direction I can go. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
leave me a whole lot of space to play in to figure out what I want as a character,
Mm-hmm.
to figure out where I want to go to explore other things. It doesn't give me that space necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
As a GM, I don't like it because I find it creatively limiting to me and my players. I want my
Mm-hmm.
players to have the ability to like go and explore and do these things that are going to be different than what they are necessarily going to get in a module.
And I think that really shows
Hmm.
people can lean into their strengths.
Yeah.
And you because you've had so much more experience, you are better at like building a skeleton and really
Hmm.
like figuring out like putting the bars together of the jungle gym to then play in it. Me, I know I can operate and like build the railroad tracks in front of me so quickly. I love modules because it's like I can then just let myself like focus in that, like the way we discussed before of like almost like like whatever the setting, the module, the whatever as being the pan. As long as I keep it in the pan, I'm okay doing whatever I want in there. uh because as long as I go like, hey, this is the point, you're trying to kill the frost maiden, you're trying to stop the night, like then they can all work to it, so then they don't feel as trapped. Because you're right, if it's something where it's just like, all right, yeah, oh man, you described this thing that's not in this book, can we go there type of thing, it's like, well, I mean, I guess, but like we're doing this book, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Like
once I've had more than one book ready on my hand where it was like, I was like, I set it up where if they want to go left they could, but I prepared myself for that. Otherwise, if you don't, then it's like, no, 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 we got to do this. And people, and I think if anybody hears either one of us talk about this like together, it's you have to realize that whether it is you setting your own like world building stuff, like building it out from scratch, or using a module, it's not a Bible, because you can change what you plan and you can change whatever they wrote. It
right.
does not have to be you have to do those things.
Hmm.
Um,
And I want
and
to just to
yeah,
touch on, I want to be very clear. Like I don't personally like running modules. I don't
mhm.
personally like
No,
playing
the
in
way you
modules.
described it, it wasn't
I
like you were like
I
they
love.
suck. Like
Oh no,
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
just a clarification.
yeah,
Like
yeah. No, it didn't
modules
sound like that. I
modules
wasn't
are
saying.
are great. Like I think there's a lot of very cool stuff in modules. And if you like playing in a module, if you like running a module, that is not me saying that like
Yeah,
what you're doing is wrong. Is my personal preference is I don't enjoy them because I find them creatively
yeah, yeah,
limiting.
yeah, yeah.
I know other GMs, like Junie, I know you run a lot of modules. Like I know a lot of GMs who love modules and like put their own flavors and twists and stuff on it, and I respect the hell out of that. I just know that for myself, if I have to like memorize all the information about this
Hmm.
module and I have to know all of the different things, it's much more difficult for me to keep track of all the moving pieces in something that
Hmm.
I didn't create,
Yeah.
than it is to keep tabs on everything in like my stuff. Like
Hmm.
one of the reasons that I was able to run like 20 plus simultaneous campaigns all in a like living world that all like kind of impacted each other was that like that works very well with my brain. My brain
Hmm.
like has all of the stories in my brain, and then all of them kind of just like fit together. And those like I call them background tasks of like my brain just
Mm-hmm.
like is able to process them and play with them and like find those connections and go, okay, well, this group did this thing, so like they should go this way. This group has done these things, so I can move their story in this direction. Whereas with a module, I don't have as much freedom
Yeah.
to
No, I got you.
make drastic changes.
Yeah,
Um,
if I can understand how if like you make too many, then it'll feel like you're and this happens with like adaptations of other works. Like if you're adapting any sort of written, drawn, animated thing to something else, if you veer too off course, then it's like, well, I know I'm supposed to get up here, but I did too many things. How am I supposed to get over there? So I can see how that's a real slippery slope. And once again, with experience, you go to avoid that. Let me not do take elements and stuff like that, but not do go that route. So I totally see that, and that's like valid.
uh,
Uh, and you know what's funny, to kind of go back to prophecies, going back to like how much weight you're putting into it. We had talked a little bit about like if it's sing-songy and the wording and stuff like that. uh we're talking about prophecies for anybody joining us. uh Really not changing the weight once you set it is a big deal, because it's
ooh,
the same thing where
yeah,
players hate DM shenanigans, because at that point you don't want to feel like you can't win, because then it'll be like it's frustrating, because it's like, oh, I did this, but then you said this, and I was like, oh, well, maybe it's whatever, but I feel like you're just gonna change it to whatever you want before I can
yeah,
solve it, or to make it keep
yeah,
going to get your way.
yeah,
So if it's something where you are going, it is a real heavy, very like it needs to happen, whatever. You can't then later on go, oh, well, you know what? If you guys don't want to do this, I guess like, oh, maybe it's about a bunny. Like, kind of just think about like that. Take that 5 minutes of game theory and kind of play it
mm-hmm,
out. If they were to go in a perfect line of like, okay, they take this thread and they keep pulling, they go blank,
mm-hmm,
blank, blank, where it might go. Because if it goes too far off, and it's gonna ruin the main point of the campaign, ruin the prophecy itself or whatever. It's gonna be a little jokey bait and switch after like a fun chill session where it's like, oh, the prophecy was really about getting this old lady's couch upstairs. Like, oh, I see how you got us. There's a difference between that and like, Kevin died so we can get this lady's couch upstairs.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. The
that's only a
once
little funny. That's not
once the
very
tone
like,
has
that's
been
not.
sent, you need
Yeah,
that tone stays.
yeah,
And it kind of
yeah,
we've
you have to
kind of
put that
circled back.
much. Yeah, that much thought into it. Yeah.
We've kind of circled back to like what we touched on earlier, which is there are different types of prophecies in a game, right? Like if you are doing a prophecy that is just a like a random person just kind of like spouting some nonsense, like they got real high on magic drugs and like saw a year into the future and now they're like babbling divination nonsense. Like there's a
Mhm,
difference between like a random prophecy that is just like designed to be like a little side thing and like
mhm.
a big story piece prophecy.
Yeah.
There's also a difference between a prophecy that is like this is a prophecy that is sort of like self-fulfilling, like it will
Yeah.
we will find what it means by playing, like the eventually the players will assign some sort of value to this prophecy and they'll be like, oh my god, like this is what this means, and then they start working to like prevent that thing, and so like in doing so that prophecy like becomes about that thing and like does
Mhm.
all of this other stuff. There's other prophecies that are like very much set in a sort of like this is this is what this means. This is like,
Hmm.
this is the story beat that this is tied to. This is going to be an important thing. And like A, B, and C are all going to happen. A, B, and C are going to play out in these ways. Like, if you are
Hmm.
doing a very like, these things will happen sort of thing, then the story also needs to be much more uh reactionary to the outcome, as opposed to being a story of like trying to prevent it. Kind of similar
Hmm.
to when we talked about like a nameless threat, right?
Hmm.
Like if it is a nameless threat, then the game becomes, we know this is coming. We are reacting and preparing for that, not we are
Hmm.
trying to prevent this thing. A lot of like the examples that come to mind are like the ones where it's like um there have been meteor showers and there's like one bright red comet in the sky, and like people are like, oh, like that is a sign that like this person who was like locked away in this like demi-planar prison and like is been sealed away for 100 years, like that red comet was here
Hmm.
when he was sealed away. That means the veil between those planes is going to be weakened, like he's going to be able to break out. Like that is a very, very different prophecy than like giving a bunch of things of like, if this happens, this will lead to that, and this thing will then happen, which leads to this. And like the players could interrupt that. Players can't interrupt like a comet. A like
Yeah.
this volcano is going to erupt. There's a like an earthquake that'll shake this section of the like, they can't interrupt those things. They can't prevent those signs from happening.
Hmm.
And so then you have those like those signs that go into place as just a like a reinforcing of, yes, this is a thing that will happen. How are you preparing for it? How are you like making sure that you are ready to prevent this thing from happening, or sorry, not prevent it from happening, but like uh how do you react to it once it has happened? If it's some person that's been locked away, like what do you do in the like the time you have until that to ensure that you are like ready to go when it happens? Like who are you talking to? What allies are you making? Are you like uh getting a bunch of like soldiers together? Are you like trying to uncover magics or
Yeah.
like spells or things that you can like put into effect to try and like prevent him from fully escaping once that barrier is weakened? Like what are you doing to react to the thing happening, because it's gonna happen? um and especially with like powerful ancient magics that have like some sort of timeline on them of like, this will happen. It's going to happen like in 100 years when this comet returns. Like this will happen. What is being done to like be prepared for that in that eventuality? They're very different games at that point.
Yeah, and you the amount of stuff you laid out, what's interesting is some people and some people don't like connect the dots on this one. I know I have done things where like I'll have my players go, "What do you want to do?" and then they'll lay out a bunch of stuff and I'm like, "Great. You created a lot of work for me." Right? I think making that like having that that like foresight of like I know that this is going to require X amount of work on like for just know that what you're setting up for them might create XYZ for you. So do that. If you want to make an elaborate, in-depth, sprawling, like it's a multi-step prophecy or something like that, then don't just have it be, oh, they will follow whatever. If you know that it's gonna lead to a temple, lead to a whole order, make sure you have all that stuff good to go. a jokey whatever prophecy, and then it ends up they like think of weird ways to solve it. Okay, then that is what it is. But know how much work you're setting up for yourself, because then it's, especially if it's not like the main point, you're going to make sure you derail things further with not just a jokey prophecy. You created a jokey prophecy, or like you created a multi-step thing that required other steps that you had to make, and then it's going to spiral and it's going to keep going. So it's the more
Especially if
the
it's a very like reactionary prophecy
correct.
of like,
So it's like
if this thing happens, then this thing happens. If this thing happens, then this thing happens. Okay,
correct.
what happens if I interrupt that first thing? Does nothing else happen? Or
Yep.
does like it's still like something else will go into
Mm-hmm.
effect? It like it, you really have to determine whenever you're working on prophecy stuff if it is a like a prophecy that can be
Mm-hmm.
prevented or if it's a like inevitability. Like, is it something where like these things are all going to happen, and if you prevent one of them, like something else will happen to like make the next thing happen instead? Like, or is it just a like, oh, if this thing happens, then this other thing will happen. If that first thing doesn't happen, it won't happen. Like it's important to establish that early when you're like working on prophecy stuff.
Um, was there anything specific that we didn't touch on yet that you were like, I know I wanted to get, like, I super duper love that Google Translate, like the translation layers thing,
It's fun.
because
Yeah.
it like as long as they know it's layered, how you did it, something where it's not going to be like, oh, this sucks, or like, oh, you
Yeah.
done screwed with us type of thing. I can see that just being so much fun
Yeah.
both ways to see
Well,
what they end up coming
and
up with and all that, whatever.
just a note on, because like you mentioned that like, oh well, if you run it like you do it that way, then you've got players that are going to have like probably going to be frustrated by like A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
Like something to keep in mind is like I agree that you should like at some point let your players know that like, by the way, this might not be fully accurate. Like there may be
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
problems here.
Mm-hmm.
The if that is the case though, that doesn't have to be the first thing you do. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can give them like a session or two with that of like trying to decipher stuff and like building out plans around that, and then give them additional information
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like point them in a more specific direction of like
Oh,
uh
yeah.
if you as long as you have like intentionality behind like, I'm not going to have them just blindly stumble through this and build out like whole elaborate plans based around information that isn't correctly translated. Like
Oh, yeah.
you can give them built-in ways to realize that this isn't correctly translated. Um
I feel like I need to be over on the top end,
Oh,
just so
really?
you know.
You think like
I
right at the beginning,
only
you're like, I just so you know, this has been ran through Google Translate a bunch of times, and then back into English. So like some of
within
it
that
might not
first.
be like fully correct.
I, I would make like a glaring something or other, like, so that way that there's an initial either with like a very shitty Rosetta Stone key type of thing, like something in the very beginning, so it gives me the excuse to say that, so that they're immediately at the step that you described as your starting point.
Yeah.
Only because if they know the method behind it, then they don't feel like they worked hard, and then to be
Mm-hmm.
like, not saying
Sure.
that it would
Sure.
be
Sure.
like
Sure.
that, but then that reveal of like, oh damn, how many times was this translated?
Yeah.
Just like, all right, huh, you find, and like really quick, whatever, like, hey, that word means this, and you think, like, like most players speak more than one language. Most players don't just
Most
speak common.
characters.
Most characters, sorry,
Yeah.
most characters don't just speak common, right? And it'd be so funny to literally go, hey, this word means this. who speaks this and this, and find 2 common languages or 2 whatever, and it's like, you read it as this, but you read it as this.
Oh,
You get the
interesting.
impression,
Give like
you know what I mean?
differing
Correct.
like based on language context.
Just so that way you can go right then and there
Yeah.
in the initial receiving of it.
Yeah.
This feels like this might have been translated multiple
Yeah.
times, like
I
that, and then you can go, "Guys, this might have been translated multiple times."
yeah,
And
I'm
then now they'll do everything, and they know
right.
Hunter ran this shit through a thing.
Yeah.
But, like, you don't have to let them we don't have to let them, you know, not flounder, but, like, puzzle
Right.
something out.
Right.
You've done that, now they can go as far as they want to go with it.
Well, and I think the key there is if they ask questions, have answers
Correct.
for
Yeah.
them.
Mhm.
But if the players receive this prophecy and they look at it and they like read through it and they go, okay, yep, that all tracks, let's go. And
The
they
only
just
time,
like
yeah.
start
Yep.
start
Correct.
actioning on what they've interpreted
Yeah.
and never do anything,
Mhm.
then like this isn't something that you have to in my mind, this isn't something where you hand it to them and you go like okay, just so you know, before I give this to you, like
Correct. Yeah, yeah,
A, B,
yeah,
and
yeah,
C,
yeah.
like this is something that like you can kind of subtly give them.
It's yeah, whatever
The
steps you have to do, like
yeah,
have the steps in place
I
how you wanna
know
approach it, yeah.
I know for myself, I use Canva a lot to make like
Mhm,
handouts and stuff for games where I'll be like,
mhm,
take a piece of like old paper, put like text across it, like mess it up, stuff like that. What might work very well here is like, uh, doing something like that and then having everything written out and then just having like specific words that are kind of like circled and then a line drawn off into the margin and then like a little note of like uh mistranslation, like, and then like some
mhm,
other things that the person who was kind of like looking over it thinks it might have been, like lines that are like underlined or
mhm.
circled and then little notes that say like this doesn't seem to flow correctly in common, like stuff like that, um to just give immediate visual context of like, oh, this is something that somebody like translated into common from something else,
Mhm.
and like it doesn't, like there are things that are going to be wrong here, like
If
it
anybody wants a free idea on this one, if you wanna really overcomplicate your handout situation, this is gonna be the dumbest thing that, the dumbest pro tip I give today. Let's just say you are doing something virtual, or you have a projector or a laptop or something, you're showing your players the thing, right? And they see it, and it's like, if you do you remember like decoder rings or decoder pieces of paper, decoder glasses
yeah,
essentially, and like they look like something when you put them on, they kind of make something revealed. You
yeah,
can do that kind of thing on Canva, where it's like, imagine like you put everything, you put like a just whatever it is going on, and then this is the coolest thing I thought of right now, where it's like you see the prophecy and they're like, it kind of sounds a little bit like this, but either like I don't know, like a guttural version of it. It's like parts of it
mm-hmm,
are missing or something like that. And I just imagine if anybody were to curse or say something in the language that it needs to be or something like that, if you take like a solid square of a certain color and change the background to it, letters would appear at that point.
mm,
Because if you make letters the same color as like what is the background,
mm-hmm,
they're invisible. But if you change it or something like that, letters would magically appear.
mm-hmm.
Where it's something where it's like, oh wait, so when we spoke in this language, or when we said something in this language, pieces filled in to whatever. What do we need to say, or what do we have to
Oh,
speak, or what
that's
do we have
so
to
weird.
whatever?
Yeah,
But you can do it live. You can do
yeah,
it like in the moment, where like, here's the thing, and you could just have it like be multiple handouts, and you slideshow it to be like, this is what it turns into.
mm-hmm,
But just imagine it's like, do this, and then you kind of like,
yeah,
and it's just like, oh crap, now it says this.
yeah,
Oh damn it. Oh Jesus Christ. Like it's
that's really funny.
uh yeah.
The I love the concept of a evolving handout. That's
Mhm.
very, very fun. There's a lot that you can do with like prophecies and stuff like that. I think that about does it for me for the stuff I wanted to touch on. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with prophecy?
Oh, yes, actually, I wrote a prophecy in the beginning of the episode, and I thought
Okay.
it'd be really cool if we open up to see if it came true.
Yeah, let's do it.
Junie will take off his shirt. I did do that.
Mm-hmm.
I was wearing a sweater at the
Yes.
beginning of this,
Yeah,
and now I'm not.
correct.
So I removed an article of clothing.
Uh-huh.
I don't think the stream got to see that it was a crop top.
You
Because
did get up multiple times.
Okay, so everybody
So
got to see
yeah.
some of my goodies. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't get taken down. Um, I don't think I showed feet, and I know that's like the big no-no on Twitch. That's real. That's a real thing.
Yep.
I think if you see feet, that's gonna be the Patreon. But yeah. So once again, I'm right.
Yeah. Well done.
If everybody remembers, I did say that I prophesized like no one's prophesized before. That happened. So if anybody wants prophecies for your game, at us.
Yeah. Join the Discord.
Join the Discord.
Message us and say
Yeah.
I need a prophecy.
I'm at Very Nerdy Dad on all your favorite socials and some of your least favorite ones. Just ask me what's going to happen in a very specific context, and if I don't know, Hunter will know, because that's usually how it works.
Yeah.
So
between the two of us, we have a full and complete knowledge of all things.
Yes, that's literally how this works.
Yeah.
We wish it wasn't. Like, and
It's
honestly, that's a lot of pressure. It's
unfortunately, most of the time we only like either of us only knows half of anything, which does make us actually dumber than most people. So it is an unfortunate but unavoidable.
And then it's like a Flowers for
situation.
Algernon situation. We come together and we're like, cursed with knowledge and burdened with
knowledge.
This.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's why we have to do
and
this stream remote, is so that we
if we were together, the government would be on top of us. Like, it'd be bad. Oh my god, Spanish channels would be like, trying to get us to fulfill horoscopes live on air. That's a thing. Anyway, okay, my kids is telling me to wake up.
Yeah.
She left the room and said, "Okay, I'll see you
Junie,
later." And then she came in.
You're still asleep. Junie, you need to wake up. You've
Been
in a coma for 4 years, Junie. Wake up.
I feel that way, everybody, because I moved my room around. I've feng shuied things, and my face is facing the window with the bright sun. And I feel like the world has been like, you thought you knew what was awake.
You thought you understood mornings, but here is the sun.
Yeah, you thought you were a semi-morning person. Guess what? And like, nope. You played fake tennis. You did.
Thank you all so much for being here with us this morning. Junie, I feel like in the spirit of this episode, instead of doing 3 calls to action, we should do three predictions for the week.
Oh, okay. Well, I knew you were going to say that, so that's already one. Like, gotcha.
Fair.
Bitch.
Yeah, we have 2 more. Second prediction. At some point this week, I predict that my father will bring me some weird nonsense thing that he bought off of Temu.
Ooh, okay, that's good. I predict that I am not probably. This is a certainty. I need to make sure that this is a certainty. I am going to spend too much time creating something that does not need to be created and or need to be like take that long to create. Example, one time my kid wanted to play with bubbles, and I decided, you know what, those are cool, but what if we made giant bubbles? And then I took entirely too much time to make a giant bubble wand.
Yep.
Because I saw it online, and I was like, I need 2 giant things to be the sticks and giant string. And what it ended up being was just like pencils and string. And I spent like over an hour on the prototype of it. and then I ordered like dowels and
Right.
other types of cord
Yeah.
to do it even like an upgraded version.
And by the
So
time
like
you were done with it, your kid had no interest in bubbles anymore.
oh, and she just wanted to use the regular bubble wand, or like
Yeah.
I made like better bubble solution that's like lasts better. So she was just putting her hands in it just so she can like
Yeah.
with that. So I was like, okay, so none of this was necessary.
Right. Yeah.
So I figure like I'm going to make I'll make she's into marble. Kids are weird. She's into like marble runs where it's like you just watch.
Yeah.
It's very ASMR-y where it's
Yeah.
like you just watch marbles go down a track. So I'll try to make an elaborate track, but she just wants to like throw it down the initial slope and doesn't care where it goes.
Right.
So I'm here trying to make like a loops and twists and turns.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to make a very elaborate thing involving cardboard and something else. And then it just be like, yo, you could have not, or you
Right.
could have just literally used a piece of white line paper. And it's like, yeah, but you know,
Yeah.
I made a scavenger hunt on Canva, and who was it? I did that. Yeah, I told you the one time I went on a scavenger hunt, and the neighbor thought I was insane.
Yep.
Because we're each playing with our 2-year-olds outside. Oh, you brought like a bike. I made a full like 12 item scavenger hunt and gave my kid binoculars, and then hey, she's like high-fiving me. And then they were like, oh, okay, cool. So I brought extras in case anybody else in the world needed it. I wasn't meeting anybody. So I think I'm gonna have one of those parent interactions where they look at me like I'm insane.
Yeah. Cool. Good predictions. We'll check in on Friday to see if either of our predictions came true.
All right.
Thank you all so much for being here this morning. Thank you for making the time, for joining us bright and early this morning. We'll be back on Friday. Until then, have a great rest of your week. Remember to embrace the nonsense, and we will see you then. Bye, y'all.